Fear is a powerful force. It creeps into the mind, whispering doubts, amplifying worries, and distorting reality. It does not come all at once. It starts as a small, nagging thought, a moment of hesitation, a quiet concern that lingers in the back of your mind. And then, like a wildfire, it spreads. Suddenly, every thought is clouded with anxiety. Every decision feels like a burden. The weight of the unknown presses down until it becomes unbearable. There are moments when fear feels justified, a difficult situation, an uncertain future, a challenge too great to handle. These things naturally bring concern. But there is a difference between reasonable caution and overwhelming fear. One allows you to act wisely while the other paralyzes you. One pushes you forward with careful steps while the other keeps you trapped in a prison of indecision. When fear takes over, it does not just affect the mind, it takes hold of the heart, the body, the very soul. It keeps you awake at night, drains your energy, and steals your peace. Anxiety often begins with a single thought: what if? What if things go wrong? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? These thoughts seem harmless at first, just small concerns that pass through the mind. But when left unchecked, they begin to multiply. Each worry builds on the last, growing stronger, louder, more convincing. Before long, the mind is trapped in a cycle of endless fear, always anticipating the worst, always expecting disaster. There is a reason why fear is one of the most powerful weapons in spiritual warfare. It does not need physical force to break a person. It only needs a foothold in the mind. Once fear takes root, it can weaken even the strongest faith. It makes a person question what they once believed. It makes them doubt their purpose, their worth, even their own strength. The longer fear remains, the harder it becomes to escape. Anxiety thrives on uncertainty. It makes the unknown feel unbearable, turning every unanswered question into a source of torment. It tricks the mind into believing that every situation will end in disaster, that every step forward is a risk too great to take. It replaces confidence with hesitation, peace with restlessness. Even when things are going well, anxiety whispers it won't last. Even in moments of joy, fear lingers in the background, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But fear is not always loud. Sometimes it works in silence. It does not always appear as panic or terror. It can manifest as constant unease, a sense of dread that never fully goes away. It can appear in the form of overthinking, second-guessing every decision, replaying every mistake it can make. Even the simplest tasks feel overwhelming, turning daily life into a struggle. And when it lasts long enough, fear can change the way a person sees the world. Instead of seeing opportunities, they see obstacles. Instead of seeing possibilities, they see problems. Instead of moving forward, they stand still, afraid to take another step. Anxiety isolates it, makes a person withdraw, avoiding conversations, avoiding people, avoiding anything that might add to the stress. It convinces them that no one understands, that no one else feels the same way. And in that isolation, fear grows stronger, without encouragement, without support, without reminders of truth. The lies of fear become more believable. It becomes easier to give in, easier to accept a life controlled by anxiety. The mind is a battlefield, and fear is one of the most relentless enemies, it does not rest. It does not give up. It looks for every weakness, every vulnerability, every open door. It twists reality, magnifies problems, and minimizes strength. It makes obstacles seem impossible to overcome, even when the truth is far different, and the more power fear is given, the more it takes. It does not stop at one area of life. It spreads into everything. It steals joy, limits potential, and creates a life filled with hesitation rather than boldness. When fear takes hold, it becomes difficult to focus on anything else. The mind races with worst-case scenarios, unable to find rest, even in moments of quiet. The thoughts persist, refusing to let go. There is no peace, no stillness. Only an overwhelming sense of dread. The future feels uncertain. The present feels unstable, and the past feels like a series of mistakes leading to more trouble. Fear changes perception, making everything appear darker than it really is. Even hope begins to seem distant, as if it belongs to someone else, but not to you. This is not just an emotional struggle, it is a spiritual attack. Fear is designed to weaken, to distract, to pull focus away from what truly matters. It is not just a feeling, it is a force working against fate, working against confidence, working against purpose. And if it is not confronted, it will only grow stronger. The mind is a powerful thing. It shapes the way a person sees the world, how they respond to challenges, and even how they view themselves. But when negative and self-destructive thoughts take root, that power is turned against itself. What once was a place of confidence and clarity becomes a battlefield of doubt, insecurity, and relentless inner criticism. These thoughts do not appear overnight. They begin as quiet whispers in the back of the mind, barely noticeable at first. A passing thought of inadequacy, a moment of comparison, a brief feeling of failure, and then they grow, they repeat, they strengthen. They become the dominant voice in the mind, drowning out truth, replacing it with lies. Negative thoughts often disguise themselves as logic. They sound reasonable, even convincing. They say, you will never be good enough. You always make the wrong choices. You are too weak to change. They masquerade as reality, but they are far from it. They do not reflect the truth. They reflect fear, insecurity, and a distorted perspective. And yet, because these thoughts come from within, they are easy to believe. It is easier to doubt oneself than to stand against an unseen force. It is easier to accept defeat than to fight against an invisible enemy. Self-destructive thoughts go beyond simple negativity. They are not just about feeling discouraged or uncertain. They attack identity, worth, and purpose. They tell a person, and they are a failure, that their past defines them, that they are unworthy of love or success. They replay every mistake, magnify every flaw, and erase every achievement. They convince a person that they are trapped, that change is impossible, that no matter what they do, they will never break free. These thoughts do not need to be loud to be powerful. Even in silence, they do their work shaping the way a person sees themselves and the world around them. Comparison fuels these thoughts, making them even more dangerous. Looking at others who seem to have it all together, who appear successful, happy, and confident, only deepens the sense of inadequacy. The mind begins to say, why can't you be like them? What's wrong with you? It creates a false reality where everyone else is thriving while failure becomes a personal identity. So social media conversations and even simple observations add fuel to the fire, reinforcing the idea that somehow, no matter how hard they try, they will never measure up. Guilt also plays a significant role. The mind holds on to past failures, replaying them like a broken record. Every wrong decision, every missed opportunity, every painful memory resurfaces, reminding a person of their shortcomings. It tells them they are beyond redemption, beyond help, beyond a second chance. It whispers, if only you had done things differently. If only you were stronger, smarter, better. And the longer these thoughts remain, the deeper they settle. They do not just affect emotions, they begin to shape actions, choices, and behaviors. When a person believes these lies long enough, they begin to act. Accordingly, they stop trying, they stop hoping, they settle into patterns of self-sabotage, convinced that success is not meant for them. Fear of failure keeps them from taking risks. Fear of rejection keeps them from building relationships. Fear of disappointment keeps them from dreaming. It becomes a cycle. Negative thoughts lead to negative choices, and those choices reinforce the belief that they were never capable to begin with. Isolation is another result. The more these thoughts take over, the harder it becomes to reach out for help. The idea of burdening others with these struggles feels overwhelming. The fear of being misunderstood or judged keeps them silent. And in that silence, the darkness grows. Without support, without encouragement, without truth, the lies, the negative thoughts take full control. They dictate self-worth, shape emotions, and determine every decision. They push a person deeper into hopelessness, making even the idea of change seem impossible. This battle of the mind it does not give up. It finds every weak moment, every vulnerability, every past wound, and uses it as a weapon. It convinces a person that they are unworthy of love, of happiness, of a better life. It makes them believe that the world would be better without them, that their existence is a mistake, that no one truly cares. And once these thoughts take hold, they are difficult to escape. They demand attention, they consume energy, and they make even the smallest task feel impossible. The effects are not just emotional or mental, they take a toll on the body. The exhaustion of constantly battling negative thoughts leads to stress, headaches, tension, and even illness. Sleep becomes restless, and energy fades every day, feels like a struggle just to get through, and the simplest joys of life seem distant, unreachable, even in moments of happiness. There is a lingering shadow, a quiet voice waiting for the right moment to remind them of their perceived failures. The most dangerous thing about these thoughts is that they feel personal. They do not come from an external source. Where they can easily be ignored or dismissed, they come from within, making them feel like absolute truth. And because they feel personal, they feel impossible to fight. They become a part of identity, shaping the way a person speaks, acts, and even sees the future. They make success feel like a risk. Relationships feel like a risk, and peace feel like an illusion. This battle is not one that can be ignored. It does not go away on its own. It grows in silence, in isolation, in avoidance. It feeds on fear, on past wounds, on insecurities. And the longer it is left unchallenged, the stronger it becomes. There was a time when prayer felt natural, when opening the Bible brought peace, wisdom, and a sense of connection. There was a time when seeking truth was not a chore, but a desire, a longing for something greater than the world could offer. But now something has changed. The passion has faded. The fire that once burned bright feels like dying. Embers, the words on the page, no longer stir the heart. The prayers that once felt powerful now feel empty, forced, or routine. And the silence feels heavier than ever before. It does not happen suddenly. The loss of passion for prayer in Scripture is not like a switch that turns off overnight. It happens gradually, almost without being noticed. One day, reading the Bible is skipped because life feels busy. The next day, prayer is cut short because exhaustion takes over. Then, little by little, it becomes easier to put it off, easier to go through the motions without feeling anything at first. There is a sense of guilt, a small tug at the heart, reminding you of what is missing. But after a while, even the guilt begins to fade, spiritual dryness sets in, and before long, the desire to seek is replaced with indifference. The distractions of life play a role in this slow drift. Responsibilities, stress, and the constant pull of the world make it easy to prioritize everything else. The mind becomes filled with worries, deadlines, and endless demands, leaving little space for quiet reflection. Prayer feels like another task on an already overwhelming list. Reading Scripture feels like something that can wait until there is more time, more energy, more focus. But the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months, and soon the connection that once felt so strong begins to feel distant. Doubt also plays its part. The thoughts begin to whisper. Does it really make a difference? Is anyone really listening? The unanswered prayers, the struggles that have not disappeared, the moments of waiting with no clear response, all of it starts to wear down the faith that once seemed unshakable. Slowly, the belief that once felt like a foundation begins to feel like a question. And in that questioning, the hunger fades. The Bible that once spoke directly to the heart now feels like words on a page. The conversations that once flowed freely in prayer now feel like one-sided monologues. The passion that once drove the Spirit forward now feels like a distant memory. The battle is not just external, it is internal. Guilt creeps in, whispering, you are failing, you are not strong enough, you should be better than this. But instead of drawing closer, guilt pushes further away. The shame of inconsistency creates a cycle. The longer prayer is neglected, the harder it becomes to return. The longer Scripture remains unopened, the more intimidating it feels to start again. And so rather than confront the emptiness, it becomes easier to avoid it, to distract, to focus on other things, and hope that the fire will reignite on its own. Emotional exhaustion takes its soul. When the heart feels weary, when life feels overwhelming, when struggles persist. Without relief, it becomes harder to engage spiritually. The energy to pray fades. The effort to seek truth feels too great. There is an unspoken frustration, a quiet wondering of why faith feels distant, why the same passion that once came so easily now feels out of reach. And in that exhaustion, resignation, say that's in the thought, comes maybe this is just the way things are now. Even the enemy knows the power of prayer and Scripture, and so the attacks are subtle but effective. The distractions multiply. The doubts increase. The mind is filled with everything except the things that nourish the soul. And the further a person drifts, the more normal it begins to feel. The less urgent it seems to return. The passion that once burned with conviction now flickers, weakened by the weight of life, of doubt, of silence. The connection that once felt unbreakable now feels distant, not because it is truly gone, but because the heart has wandered far from where it used to be. There is a kind of loneliness that goes beyond physical. Isolation. A person can be surrounded by others, engaged in conversation, appearing perfectly fine on the outside, yet feel completely alone on the inside. It is a quiet, persistent ache, an emptiness that words cannot fully describe. It is the sense of being unseen, unheard, disconnected from the world around them, even in a crowded room, even among friends or family. The feeling lingers like standing behind an invisible wall that no one else seems to notice. Loneliness does not always arrive suddenly. Sometimes it builds slowly, moment by moment, until one day it becomes unbearable. It begins with small moments of disconnection, a conversation that feels forced, an event where no one truly seems to notice if they are there or not, a realization that the depth of their struggles remains hidden from everyone around them. Over time, these moments add up and the mind begins to whisper, no one really understands, no one really cares. The more these thoughts repeat, the deeper they take root. And soon loneliness is no longer just a feeling, it becomes an identity. It is more than just being alone. It is the belief that one is alone, even when they are not. It is the quiet voice that says you don't belong. It convinces a person that they are different, that they do not fit in, that no one would truly accept them if they knew the full depth of their thoughts, their fears, their struggles. It creates a barrier, making it difficult to reach out, to connect, to trust. The longer this feeling remains, the harder it becomes to break free, the more someone believes they are alone. The less likely they are to let anyone in. Past wounds play a role in deepening isolation, betrayal, rejection, loss. Each painful experience builds another layer of distance between a person and the world around them. The mind begins to protect itself, convincing them that staying guarded is safer than risking further pain. It becomes easier to retreat, to keep conversation shallow, to avoid vulnerability. But in doing so, the loneliness only grows stronger. The very thing they need, genuine connection, becomes the thing they fear the most. Even the presence of social media and constant communication does not erase loneliness. If anything, it often makes it worse. Scrolling through images of others laughing, celebrating, achieving, creates the illusion that everyone else is connected while they remain on the outside looking in. It reinforces the lie that they are the only one struggling, that they are the only one who feels this way. But the truth is, loneliness is far more common than it seems. Many carry the same hidden ache, the same silent longing for deeper connection, but few speak about it. Loneliness affects not just the mind, but the heart and body as well. It drains energy, making even simple tasks feel exhausting. It steals joy from moments that should be meaningful. It creates a heaviness that lingers throughout the day, making everything seem dull, distant, empty. And at night, when the world is quiet, the weight of isolation becomes even stronger. The thoughts grow louder, the silence feels heavier, and the question echoes once again. Does anyone truly see me? There is a danger in prolonged isolation. The more disconnected someone feels, the more they withdraw. The more they withdraw, the deeper the loneliness becomes. It turns into a cycle that feeds itself, pulling them further away from relationships, from hope, from the possibility of change. And as time passes, it becomes harder to believe that things could ever be different. It becomes easier to accept loneliness as a permanent state rather than something that can be overcome. The enemy of the soul knows the power of isolation. When a person feels alone, they are more vulnerable to doubt, to fear, to hopelessness. They begin to believe lies about themselves, that they are unworthy, that they are forgotten, that their presence does not truly matter. These thoughts work to weaken their spirit, to keep them from reaching out, to convince them that isolation is their only reality. And the longer they remain in this state, the more disconnected they feel, not just from people, but from purpose, from meaning, from hope itself. Loneliness does not always show itself in obvious ways. Some hide it behind a smile, behind a busy schedule, behind distractions that keep the mind occupied but never truly satisfied. Others try to numb it with temporary comforts, seeking relief in ways that only deepen the emptiness. But no matter how well it is here hidden, the feeling remains. The heart knows when something is missing. The soul recognizes when it is longing for something more. And no amount of surface-level interaction can replace the need for true connection. The weight of loneliness can be crushing. It can make a person feel as if they are fading into the background, as if their voice no longer matters, as if they are slowly disappearing from the world around them. It can create a sense of despair, a belief that things will never change. It can rob a person of joy, of purpose, of the very desire to keep moving forward. And if left unchallenged, it can consume them entirely, leaving nothing but an overwhelming sense of emptiness where hope once lived. The mind was not meant to be in a constant state of noise. It was not created to be pulled in 1,000 different directions, overwhelmed by endless distractions, consumed by the never-ending flood of information. Yet that is exactly what is happening. The ability to focus, to think deeply, to rest mentally has been replaced by a cycle of overstimulation, making it harder and harder to find clarity thoughts. Feels scattered. Attention feels fragile, and no matter how much effort is made, true rest seems just out of reach. It starts with small things: a phone buzzing with notifications, an email that demands immediate attention, a schedule packed with commitments, responsibilities, and expectations. It is a world filled with distractions, and the mind, already weary, struggles to keep up. The result is a constant state of mental fatigue, feeling of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can seem to fix. It is not just physical tiredness. It is deeper than that. It is the kind of weariness that makes even simple decisions feel overwhelming. The kind that makes it difficult to focus on one thing without the mind drifting to another distraction. It's not just about external noise. It is an internal battle as well. Even in moments of quiet, the mind races. It jumps from one thought to the next, and unable to settle, worries about the future, regrets from the past, the pressure to perform, the fear of missing out. All of it collides, creating a storm of mental unrest, and the more this cycle continues, the harder it becomes to slow down. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels unnatural. The mind craves movement, but at the same time it longs for peace. This constant state of distraction does not come without consequences. It weakens, Focus making it difficult to engage fully in anything. Conversations become shallow because the mind is elsewhere. Tasks take longer to complete because attention keeps drifting. Even moments of joy feel distant, as if they are being experienced through a fog. The ability to be present, to truly absorb the moment, is slowly slipping away, replaced by a restless need to move on to the next thing. Mental fatigue sets in, draining energy, motivation, and clarity. The simplest tasks feel overwhelming. Productivity declines, not for lack of effort, but because the mind feels overloaded. Creativity suffers. Inspiration feels blocked. It becomes harder to think deeply, to process emotions, to make wise decisions. Everything begins to feel like too much. Yet at the same time, nothing feels fulfilling. The digital world plays a major role in this exhaustion. Every day, the mind is bombarded with more information than it was ever meant to process. Social media news, advertisements, endless notifications, each one pulling attention away from what truly matters. The brain is constantly shifting gears, constantly switching from one thought to the next, never given the chance to rest. And though it may seem harmless, this constant stimulation is slowly reshaping the way people think, making it harder to focus, harder to reflect, harder to simply be still. Even in moments meant for rest, the mind remains restless. An ability to disconnect, to truly unwind, keeps the brain in a constant state of activity, and when the body and mind are both running on empty, everything else begins to suffer: mental health, emotional stability, relationships, and even faith. The worst part of distraction and mental fatigue is that they keep a person from recognizing just how deep the problem has become. The busyness, the noise, the overstimulation, it all creates an illusion of productivity, as if constantly moving means progress. But in reality, it is only keeping the mind trapped in a cycle of exhaustion. The ability to think clearly, to hear truth, to engage in meaningful reflection, it all fades under the weight of constant distraction. And the longer this pattern continues, the harder it becomes to break free. Temptation does not always come in obvious ways. It does not always arrive with a clear warning or a sudden shift. More often than not, it begins subtly, quietly creeping into the mind like a whisper. It presents itself as a harmless thought, an innocent distraction, a small compromise that seems insignificant, but once it takes root, begins to grow. The more attention it receives, the longer it becomes. And before long, what once seemed like a passing thought becomes a struggle, a battle that feels almost impossible to win. Doubt follows a similar path. It does not start with an explosion, but with a seed, a small question, a fleeting uncertainty, a thought that suggests something may not be as true as once believed at first. It's easy to push aside, to ignore, but if it lingers, if it is entertained, it begins to spread. One question leads to another. One moment of hesitation gives way to deeper uncertainty, and soon the things that once felt unshakable begin to feel fragile. Temptation and doubt often work together when a person is tempted. Doubt enters to justify the action. It whispers, "Is it really so wrong? Does it even matter?" When a person struggles with doubt, temptation increases its pressure, offering relief, distraction, or a false sense of control. They feed off each other, creating a cycle that weakens resolve, shakes confidence, and clouds judgment. The mind is the battlefield where these struggles take place. It is where temptation first appears, where doubt first takes hold. The thoughts that seem small and insignificant at first are often the ones that become the most dangerous over time. A single compromising thinking can open the door to deeper struggles. A single question left unguarded can turn into full-blown uncertainty. The danger is not in having thoughts of temptation or doubt. It is in allowing them to linger, in letting them shape actions, in giving them the space to grow. Untemptation often attacks in moments of weakness when a person is tired, stressed, or discouraged. The pressure increases. It comes in the form of escape, promising relief from pain, or exhaustion. It offers short-term pleasure while hiding long-term consequences. It convinces the mind that giving in just once will not make a difference, that small compromises do not matter, but every decision shapes the heart. Every action builds a pattern, and every moment of surrender makes it harder to resist the next time. Doubt too intensifies in seasons of struggle, when prayers seem unanswered, when difficulties persist, when life does not go as expected. The questions grow louder. Where is the answer? Why is this happening? Is there even a plan at all? The foundation that once felt strong begins to feel unstable. The mind searches for certainty, but finds only more questions. And as doubt grows, so does distance. The things that once grew comfortably. Many of you do not avoid life. Brought comfort no longer feel the same. The words that once brought clarity now feel distant. The presence that once felt so near now seems out of reach. The enemy knows the power of doubt. He knows that a mind filled with questions is a mind that hesitates. He knows that when confidence is shaken, decisions become weaker and conviction begins to waver. And so he does not need to destroy faith all at once. He only needs to introduce enough uncertainty to weaken it, enough hesitation to create distance. He uses past failures as proof that victory is impossible. He reminds of past mistakes, whispering that change is not real, that growth is temporary, that no matter how much effort is made, failure is inevitable. Temptation and doubt do not just affect the mind, they affect everything. They create exhaustion, frustration, and discouragement. They lead to regret, to guilt, to a sense of failure that weighs down the spirit, and the longer they persist, the harder it becomes to break. Free the desire to fight. Fades the belief that things can be different. Doubt intensify at certain moments. They do not appear randomly. They come when a person is on the edge of breakthrough, when they are about to step into something greater, when they are in the middle of growth but are not yet fully stable. They come as an attack, a distraction, a strategy to pull the mind away from truth. And more a person, E&T, attains them, the more power they gain, the more space they are given, the stronger they become. And if left unchallenged, they will continue to grow until they control everything. There are times when the weight of life feels heavier than it should. It is not just exhaustion from a long day, not just sadness from a single event, but something deeper, something that lingers, something that presses down on the heart and find with no clear explanation. It is an unshakable heaviness, an invisible burden that makes even simple tasks feel overwhelming. The world moves forward, life continues as usual, but inside everything feels slow, heavy, and empty. It is difficult to explain to others because nothing specific seems to be wrong. There was no great tragedy, no obvious cause, yet the weight is there. It drains energy, it dulls emotions, it turns once joyful moments into obligations and once simple tasks into struggles. The things that used to bring excitement now feel distant. Conversations feel forced. Laughter